Right, welcome back everyone to another DA Musical HQ Discovery session. This is a new session that I've come up with. It's sort of mainly educational for me, but it's more about me kind of becoming more of a nerd in musical instruments and that kind of thing. And today is no different. No different. I have the fantastic Karan Singh, the owner and luthier from Bigfoot Guitars, based in New Delhi for the moment, and looking really forward to posing a couple of really interesting questions and getting to know this fantastic luthier. Just to introduce myself, my name is Dominic. I'm your host. You know me by now, and I'm looking forward to hosting this discussion. Just another reminder. We are still supporting the World Health Organization, so any donations that come through from this discussion, 10% will go through to the World Health Organization to help them to respond to the COVID-19 pandemic. But without much further ado, I'm going to head over to New Delhi to go and say hi to Karan. Karan, how are you? Lovely to have you on the show.
All right, thank you for having me over, man, virtually. Yeah, I'm looking forward to this. It should be a fun session.
Yeah, it's fantastic. I actually came across you during my discussion with Michael Watts.
Yes,
and of
right.
course Michael.
I tuned into his interview.
Exactly. So what how fantastic! And of course we got talking about it, and you'd actually spent a bit of time with Jason Costel, which is amazing.
Yes, absolutely. I owe a lot of what I do today to Jason. Very, very grateful for that. Always will be. He's a fantastic guy, and he knows a thing or two about building guitars as well. But, yeah.
For sure. But I think there are the bits and pieces about Jason Costel that we could talk about for hours.
Yeah.
But I haven't had the pleasure of meeting Jason yet. But I would love to spend just 5 minutes with him, because I've had a look at some of his guitars and they are just incredible.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But tell me, how long have you been in Lutherie for? What what got you into it?
Okay. Well, a slightly condensed version. I got into it about more than 10, almost 12 years ago now. Mostly just as a way of trying to tinker around with my own guitars. I had a bunch of electric guitars and one or two old acoustics, and I kept trying to set them up, and I couldn't get them done locally at the local music stores. I was unable to get them playing the way I would like, and I'm not much of a musician. I never have been. But having said that, it would still be annoying at times, to not have a comfortable to play instrument. So I started researching, and I got onto the internet, and I found out that there are these guys called luthiers that exist, and they actually, they build instruments, they work on instruments, all kinds of things. So a few emails later, I came across a couple of really helpful people in the US, and they guided me on to some books and DVDs just on repair, on the basics of guitar repair. And I started messing around with my own instruments, and surprisingly enough, they didn't explode, and they started playing fairly comfortably. And I had a small informal band going at the time, and then I started tinkering around with the guitars of my bandmates, and it just kind of organically grew from there. All this time I had a day job, so this was never supposed to be something that I was going to make a career out of.
Isn't
was just
always
fun.
Like that?
So it was like weekend work in the basement, and I built myself a workbench and went from there. And gradually it just kind of picked up to a stage where I started getting phone calls from people I didn't know saying, oh, I played so-and-so's instrument and it's playing quite comfortably. Could you take a look at mine and, sort this out and sort that out? I said, sure, I'd be happy to take a look at it. And then over a period of 1 or 2 years, that kind of, it just went from there.
Fantastic.
And as I kept doing more and more repairs, I started thinking about, what it would be like to build an instrument. And those days I was playing the electric guitar quite a bit. So I said, let's make an electric. And I got hold of a Telecaster blueprint. And that's one of 2 copies I've made, I think, in my life. So the first one was a straight up Tele, and it came together. It plays. I presented it to a friend of mine, and he still got it, I think. Probably more out of the goodness of his heart than anything else, but he still does have it. But, yeah.
That's incredible.
And the journey just went up. I mean, that's where it kind of started. Once I built that first electric, it was fun. I really enjoyed it. I had no idea about wood and woodworking. I had never held a hand plane or a saw or a chisel bore. So it was really starting from the ground up, understanding how to use tools. And then it wasn't about so much as it was about a lesson in woodworking. So once that bug kind of bit, I started getting more serious about it, at least in my mind. And then about 6 years ago, we had our first child, my wife and I, our older son. And when he was born, I decided to try and do something that would keep or work from home.
Okay.
And I figured now's a good time, as good as any to start building guitars.
Wow.
So we went, while my wife was on maternity leave, months where I was studying the Lutherie over there on the west coast of Ireland, and that's where the thing actually started. And it was my focus by then had shifted more to acoustics, because that's what I really truly enjoy listening to and playing as well. So that's where it seriously started. So about 6 years full time, I would say, and about a decade or so doing it on the side.
Fantastic! It's incredible. It's totally incredible. Another question that's popped up. So you built your first. Well, when did you build your very first Bigfoot guitar?
When did I build my first Bigfoot guitar?
Yeah, when did you build your very first Bigfoot guitar?
It was, I think, in just after back. So it would be October of 2015.
Okay. And that was obviously an acoustic, eh?
Yes, that was an acoustic.
Okay. And what?
So I do. I mean, a lot of people don't know this about me, but I also make electric guitars.
Oh, really?
I don't them as much. Been design changes and things like that.
Yeah. Oh, we seem to have lost him. We seem to have lost Karan.
Really.
Karan, I think we've lost you. I'm gonna.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's just breaking up a little bit. You're back now.
Okay. All right, I'm back now. So, yeah. At which point did you lose me?
Yeah, well, it was just you started. I think you started with your first guitar was in October of 20. When was that?
Yes,
2013.
2014.
And and just tell me something. From a shape point of view, what was that as a shape? An OM or?
It was an OM. Yes, I've never personally been a big fan of very large guitars. So when I see a Dreadnought or when I see a Jumbo, I mean, for specific styles of music, they're great. I enjoy listening to them. I've just never really been very excited about playing them myself.
Okay.
And I'm more partial to the smaller bodied instruments. So the OM in an ideal world would be as big a guitar as I would make.
Okay.
And smaller than that, sure. So I made a bunch of parlor sized guitars. I've done like really small-bodied classical guitars like the Rosette Design, from a couple of 100 years ago, and I really enjoy those. I think they're real fun. They're very personal, and they're different. I mean, they're easier to take around with you. They're just all around very happy little instruments.
Absolutely.
And they can put out a lot of volume. They can put out a lot of serious tone. So I really don't see like a negative side to it.
No,
they're great.
I'm very fortunate to have an OM model from Santa Cruz, which my father gave me, it's a beautiful guitar, absolutely beautiful guitar, and the most incredible tone and just lovely.
Yeah. Yes.
What else?
They make wonderful guitars.
Yeah, Richard Hoover. But they also make an incredible Dreadnought as well. Dreadnought, which is I think it's the Tim Rice model, which is just would love to get my hands on one of those.
So little time, so many guitars to get hold of.
So many guitars. There was an interesting question that I came up with earlier. Okay. Yeah. What? Oh, here's a good question. What do you think of 13 fret to the body construction?
Wow, we've suddenly gone like all technical.
This is from my father. He's obviously been toying with 12 fret and 13 fret and 14 fret, and he's kind of settled at 13 fret. And you'd be quite interested to know what you think.
Sure. So, without making this an overly serious conversation, I'm a sucker for 12 fret necks. I personally really like where that situates the bridge, right? Because, I mean, a lot of people know this, some people don't know it, but I'm just going to put it out there because some listeners may not be aware of it. Essentially, what happens is when you're playing a guitar which has a 14 fret neck joint, then the bridge situates itself like somewhere here, right? Well, this is a 12 fret neck joint on the OM. And what that does is essentially it splits the soundboard into two halves, roughly from where the sound hole ends till the tail of your instrument. And apart from that geometric division that takes place, it also changes the way the top moves when your instrument is activated. So when you strum the strings or you pluck a note, it just kind of makes the top pump in a different way. And it changes the tone. For me, I think it adds a little bit more warmth to the sound, and I really, really like that. And as far as, a lot of people say, I can't access the higher frets. Well, you've got a cutaway. And beyond that, it's a preference thing. I mean, a lot of people swear by 14 fret neck joints as well. So it's completely subjective because it's just my opinion of what I think sounds really nice. And I offer it to clients. And invariably, for at least the folks who've never played a 12 fret neck joint on anything apart from a classical guitar, when they try out one of the steel strings, I haven't had too many who've turned around and said, no, I want the 14 fret over this. So that's my personal preference. As far as the 13 fret goes, to be honest, I've never built one with a 13 fret neck joint. I built I offer my OM in the 14, and I make a modified Dreadnought, which is a scaled down version of the Dreadnought, again, more for fingerstyle playing. So it's a slightly smaller body, more comfortable to sit down and play.
Yeah.
That's got a 12 fret neck joint on it. I've never really built a 13, but I don't know, maybe I'll build one at some point and be like, wow, this is the coolest thing that I've ever heard. I haven't experienced it, so I really can't say at this point.
Well, then I'm sure we'll hear from you if you ever do build a 13 fret. A very interesting question. I was looking at your website just to kind of prepare for today, and it says that you've used a lot of local woods, a lot of woods that we are maybe not so accustomed to seeing on a guitar. Something like mango wood, which I found very interesting.
So I think where that came from was, well, I'm in India.
Yeah.
Getting hold of materials over here is just it's a pain in all the wrong places, especially importing goods in. We've got like a 40% duty on anything that comes in from outside. So getting hold of, various species of wood that people in the West are used to, it can be done. It's not that it can't be done. So if someone comes to me saying, I want this specific thing, I'll get it. However, I think it's part of my job, and a part of what excites me about being in this field is that I get to work with different materials, which people in the West may not have seen.
Yeah.
I'm fortunate to be in India. We are home to 400 species of hardwood, tropical hardwood. Okay, we are not restricted to 3 or 4 species like the maple and the oak, and like you would in England, and you've got maybe 3 or 4 more, and they're all great, but it's a very small, it's a very limited variety compared to what we've got.
Absolutely.
We've got trees here that don't even have names in English yet, because a lot of folks just, I'm sure there's a scientific name, but they come in from forests in really isolated spots in the country, and most of them don't have a standardized English name, because the guys cutting them have no clue. They've been asked to do logging and in a certain area, and so while logging, someone will find something that's interesting, and then after a few phone calls, I'll get a call saying, oh, there's something cool here. Would you like to take a look, or would you be interested? And so once it's cut, I'll take a look at it, and I'm always happy to experiment. So I'll pick up samples of everything I can get my hands on if I think that it's dense enough, it's stiff enough, and it looks beautiful. And I will keep it. I'll let it dry out for a few years, and then I'll do something with it. And if I think that it works,
is there a local hardwood that you feel is like one of the up and coming tone woods that luthiers should be aware of?
Oh no, trade secrets.
No.
No, I'm just kidding. Well, there are a couple of species. Okay, so I've worked with things like mango. I've worked with spalted tamarind. I've worked with something called Indian redwood, which looks like ridiculously figured koa.
Wow.
I've used mulberry. I've worked with Indian eucalyptus. There's really a lot of species of timber that I have used on acoustic instruments. On electrics, I don't count them because you can get away with a lot.
Yeah.
Someone may kill me for saying this, but you can get away with a lot on an electric guitar. On the acoustics, it's a little bit different. However, these are the ones that I've been able to use to use successfully, or that I'd be happy to offer a client. Let's put it that way. Out of all of these, there is the one that I think sounds the best tonally is something called jackfruit. Which is,
okay.
It is, have you seen the fruit?
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a jackfruit? Yeah, so it looks like a durian. For those who don't know what a jackfruit is, it's like that big and it's green. And, it's a strange looking fruit. It's a strange smelling fruit. For those who like eating it, they love it. For those who can't handle the smell, they despise it. It's just one of those things. You've got lovers and haters. There's no one who finds it just okay.
No.
But the wood is phenomenally resonant.
Wow.
It is lightweight. It is stiff. It makes a wonderful looking guitar. It makes a beautiful sounding guitar. I've used it on nylon string instruments and on steel string instruments, and it's gorgeous stuff. It has been used.
What do you normally use it for the top, or do you use it for the sides?
Oh no, the back and sides.
Back
and sides. Yeah, for the tops, in terms of all the Indian woods that I've worked with, I've made a lot of hardwood topped guitars. The one that I would possibly ever go back to is it's a hardwood called Indian red cedar. It's a little bit like mahogany. Mm-hmm. It's not like the Western red cedar at all. It's a hardwood. It's more like mahogany, but it rings. It really, really rings.
Wow.
And it makes a very lively and a very responsive top. So that's the only one out of the hardwoods that I would maybe go back to today. Okay. In the past, I have worked with several other species, but that's the one I would probably use if I had to make a hardwood top guitar. Otherwise, I stick to the spruce family options.
Okay. Fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Okay, so we've done that one. Sustainability. That's a question that keeps coming up. How are we going to become more sustainable? I know there were a number of luthiers that were getting very excited about the tree, and there really isn't very much of that available. I mean, you can't, you're talking about petrified wood from hundreds of years ago. How as an industry are we going to become more sustainable?
Well, okay. This is a very complicated question, and it's not something that I think has an answer right now, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think because the guitar building industry gets divided into two very different sections. One is the luthiers, and all the luthiers on the planet put together maybe comprise or make up for a couple of % of whatever's going on with, let's say, the rosewood species. Let's talk about that, because that's what started off most of these debates.
Totally.
And then you've got factories in bigger countries where it's like I was in Shanghai last year, and I was talking to some of the manufacturers over there at an exhibition, and in 1 year they put out more than 7 million instruments. Okay.
Wow.
Now, even if you use solid back and sides or veneered back and sides, it doesn't matter. That's a lot of rosewood, right? And then there's a demand for making not just musical instruments, but it's just it's furniture, it's various other things, and it's a bit over the top. So again, without making this a 2-hour chat about the exploitation of forests and how rosewood is getting screwed around with, I think in terms of sustainability, I think there are options. I think there are plenty of species of wood that people can work with. I think the bigger challenge that a lot of luthiers face is just, do I want to make that sale?
Yeah.
Because a lot of the clientele that comes in, especially at the higher end price segment, when people come to you for an instrument, they are expecting to be shown the finest Brazilian rosewood or the finest Madagascar rosewood or the finest whatever it is, African blackwood, or or the tree or what have you, right? Indian rosewood it's a phenomenal tone wood. However, it's looked down upon comparatively, right? There's always this thing in people's mind, oh, that's Indian, it's not from here, it's not from there, it's the Indian rosewood. Again, it's a demand supply thing. It's because of years of tradition. And don't get me wrong, Brazilian is great. This is not to say that those woods don't sound great when they're used properly on a great guitar. Of course they are. There's a reason that they became famous to begin with. However, there's a bunch of options. And I think if now more and more, at least in the last 5-7 years, builders have started experimenting a lot more than they were in the decade prior to that.
Yeah.
So now I'll see, like when I started working with spalted tamarind, for example, I don't know how many times I've had guys in the West be like, oh, that's beautiful, but in the same breath they'd be laughing, being like, who uses spalted tamarind for a back and side? And now it's just in the last 4 or 5 years, I can tell you, man, that the number of builders using it has gone up a lot. Because it's a stunning looking wood and it can be used to make a damn good guitar. So
Absolutely.
Why not?
Absolutely.
If you're going to base, the way I used to think about it, or the way I still think about it, is if in your head you only visualize a Brazilian and a German spruce combination for a guitar, and that's your definition of a guitar, then that's what you're going to have to get.
Yeah.
Right. If you're trying to expect another species of wood like a spalted tamarind or a mango or whatever it is to replicate that sound, no, it's not going to replicate that sound. So when people come to me and say, oh, how does this sound compared to a rosewood? It's a simple question. I get where they're coming from, because that's the standard that the average person has in their mind. You know what a rosewood guitar sounds like because that's what you've tried in 100 different stores, and that's fine. It's perfectly valid. Having said that, I can't compare a piece of tamarind to it or a piece of mango to it, because it sounds nothing like rosewood.
Totally different.
But yes, when it comes together into an instrument, when it becomes a guitar, it sounds really good, as long as you know what you're doing with it. So I think one is the species of wood. The second is the client needs to be a little open-minded with accepting the fact that, okay, maybe Brazilian isn't the way going forward, or a Madagascar rosewood isn't the way going forward. And it's also up to the builder to be, to literally have the balls to say, okay, give this a shot. You'll be pleasantly surprised.
Totally.
And it may take a couple of generations for that shift to happen. Like it's already started, but it's not going to happen in the next 2 years.
No.
It may take another 20 years or another 40 years. I don't know. We'll see.
What is
It can be done.
What is the supply of, for instance, spotted tamarind or spalted tamarind? What is the supply?
It's in abundance
Okay.
because these trees they're widely available.
Okay.
And it's not, particularly expensive. It's not on any endangered species list. And just like that, there are plenty. I'm just using spalted tamarind as one example, man. There are
many.
There's really a lot of options. There's tonewood suppliers in this country who will contact me and, say, what would you recommend for a guitar? Because then I can talk to potential clients in the US and show them new stuff.
Yeah.
And I'm like, great. If you're introducing people to new woods, it's great. I think it's awesome because it just takes the load off that requirement.
Totally.
And I think it's a great thing. So one of the things I would do each time I would attend the Holy Grail show in Berlin would be to bring guitars made of woods that people have not seen before. So the last two, 2016, 2018, and even this time's show, each time I have consciously made an effort to not go there with a Rosewood and, just a standard combo.
Yeah.
I could. It would be lovely. It would be a wonderful sounding instrument. But I said, if there's, serious buyers are going to be there. There are serious musicians going to be there. There are other builders who are going to be there.
Yeah.
It's great to showcase something that you can put out there and say, maybe this is one of the options going forward. Why not?
Absolutely.
Take a look at it, put your hands on it, play it, listen to it. And if you don't like it, fair enough. It's okay. You don't have to, there's no compulsion, but at least give it a shot.
Absolutely. No,
I think if you do like it, you never know where it goes.
I think being open-minded going forward and like trying to spread the numbers or the number of woods that we use, I think that's probably going to be the way to be more sustainable. We have actually a comment here from Eric Song. He says that that spalted tamarind looks like stone. He loves it.
Yeah. Thank you, Eric.
And then Mark says, hey, Karan, what are the tonal profiles of some of the local woods you've been working with? Tonal profile.
Could you be a little bit more specific? So when you say tonal profile, again, are we using Rosewood as the base for comparison?
Okay. Well,
we have, I could bring out 5 sets of wood here. We had like a little bit of a mic setup and all of those things, and I could tap them and make you hear some of these species. So jackfruit, for example, it's a light to medium weight. It's not particularly, it's not super light, but it's definitely not heavy. It's lighter than a mahogany, for example. Extremely resonant. You tap it and it's going to ring like a bell. It's out there. Indian laurel is, it looks a lot like Indian rosewood, very, very similar looking, but extremely dense, very hard, a bit of a pain to work with, but comes out beautiful. And it, again, huge amounts of sustain.
Yeah.
There's a new wood that I've been working with, which Eric knows about, and he keeps leching at. It's called Ghamar. That's the local name for it. I'll show it to you in a while.
Okay.
It's highly figured. It is, I think to date, it is probably the lightest hardwood that I have ever worked with on a guitar for the back and sides. I have never worked with wood that is this light, but at the same time retains its stiffness and beautiful sounding.
Wow.
Right. That was one of the Holy Grail guitars, which I will just shortly show you guys. And so there are a bunch of these. Spalted tamarind, funnily enough, when you pick up a piece of spalted tamarind and you tap it, the way you'll see in all the videos, luthiers do that, and they'll hold a piece of wood. It sounds like cardboard, right? But
it's that light.
by the time it's got the braces on, by the time it's sealed, by the time it becomes part of that unit, it changes and it comes alive. Wow. And it does look stunning. I'll show you. I've got a spalted tamarind guitar getting ready for a client in the UK, so I'll show you that as well shortly. But it's just one of those things. So there's 2 aspects to that. One is to identify a piece of wood just by tapping it and being like, oh, this is going to make an amazing guitar. And there are some woods you can do that with. And then there are some where you'll just have to build with it once and then see what happens. Sure. It may not always work, but with a lot of them, it does. Because once the structure stiffens up a bit, once that spalted tamarind gets the bracing, gets all these other things, you need to porphyry it, sometimes with a bit of very thin super glue.
Yeah.
It just kind of helps stiffen things up, and voila, you suddenly have something that sings.
Do you
And
do you
a month
add
before that, you didn't.
do you add a veneer to tamarind, to spalted tamarind?
I don't.
No.
I don't. But if it's too heavily, if it's very, very heavily spalted, you'll make out when you're working with the wood, when you're thickness sanding it. If it's been left to spalt for way too long, the wood's going to just crumble,
Okay.
because it is at the end of the day a fungus that's working the wood and creating the spalting pattern on it.
Okay.
So there is a time where you need to kind of like pull it out of that moist area where you've left it for the fungus to spread, and then start drying it and slice it up and get it ready for actual usage.
Yeah.
And if you pass that time, then it's good for inlay material maybe, but you can't really make a guitar out of it.
Oh, okay. Okay. And tell me from an aesthetic point of view, from all of your designs, where does that sort of come from normally? Is that a client from what decorations or whatever you used on the actual guitar?
You mean like the inlay
Decorative
work
design
and things
and
like that?
exactly,
Or the little designs around the rosette?
Yeah.
Actually, no. I am usually, not always, but most of the time, I'm rather finicky or picky about not changing my rosette.
Okay.
I have a rosette design that I'd come up with a while ago, and the idea was to make something that I thought was fairly simple, but at the same time elegant, and had a little bit of, I don't know, for lack of a better descriptor, a little bit of India coming through. And that's how I came upon my rosette, which I'll show that to you on the instruments shortly.
Brilliant.
So it's basically just a wooden ring, and it's got these little petals going around it. And then I started making end grafts to match that. Right. What I don't do, and I'm very, very particular about, is I don't work with shell. I don't do abalone trims and this, that. I like my instruments to just be simple.
Yeah.
I like that aesthetic. I like my fretboard to be plain. I don't like putting things down the fretboard. My purflings are just wooden purflings. I may increase or decrease the width of that wooden purfling based on what my client wants. If he wants it a little thicker, that's fine. But I don't come in there with like really super ornate stuff. That's not my aesthetic sense. My brain doesn't go down that path. When someone tells me to get creative, I'm not capable of thinking that way. It just doesn't happen with me. I can see a design on someone else's guitar and appreciate it and be like, that's beautiful, but that's not my aesthetic sense.
Absolutely. My dad, Rani says he loves the Rosette Design.
Oh, thank you very much. Thank you.
That's Eric was also shouting there, Gamar.
Yeah, Kamal, yeah.
Kamal.
You're going to see it soon, Eric. You're going to see it soon.
Exactly.
I've got it right here behind me.
One of the main things, you spent a month with Jason in Arizona.
That's right.
Either out of your or his choice, we're not really sure.
No comment. I bullied him into it.
There was a little video that I'd actually put as part of the sort of the event up and coming to today, but I just changed that. I actually found someone who was playing one of your OMs, and but there's a lovely interview with you and Jason in the kitchen.
Oh yes, that was in his house.
which everyone must go and have a watch. It's so fantastic. It's a lovely video.
Actually, it was such a fun time, man. Really, it was. Well, of course, I went there to learn and spend time with him in his workshop. His workshop is at home, so we walked down into his basement, and there we are at work. And we did that. We did a lot of that during my month there, but also we just ended up spending a lot of time together. And he was kind enough to have me in his house for that long. I don't think he's ever had a house guest for that long, family included. I may have set a record in the Coastal house. And he was kind enough not to kick my ass out by the time we were done. I actually got a goodbye hug, and there were tears in his eyes. I wasn't sure if it was happiness or sadness, but there were tears, and just kidding. But we went through a lot in terms of figuring out how to make my processes more efficient, how to improve the finer aspects of the guitars that I was building. Of course, helped gain more in-depth understanding of voicing, which is one of the most critical areas, arguably. But along with voicing, I mean, honestly, I think the voicing was just a few days more. It was this comprehensive Q&A session that we would just keep having. I would watch him work, and I wasn't working on a project per se. I was just watching him work, and we would just keep having conversations. And because I'd already built, I don't know, maybe around 50, 55 guitars by then, it wasn't so much a how-to, kind of situation. It was more like why. What's the reasoning behind everything? What's the philosophy behind it? What are we hoping to achieve? And how are we likely to try and control various parameters? So those are the kind of conversations we had, and it was great. And it was interspersed with a lot of great food and a lot of outings and a lot of, visits here and there. He was kind enough to take me around every couple of days. I can't drive on the other side of the road. So we'd drive down all over the place for food, and one day to the Grand Canyon, one day somewhere else. So it was a good mix. It was he's a great host, man.
Yeah.
Maybe you should get something going on Airbnb during the lockdown.
That's actually a good idea, but just for luthiers.
He's going to kill me. He's going to kill me after this. But yeah.
I spoke to Michael about it, and we're trying desperately to see who will be the first person to get him to play in public.
Yeah.
I wonder who's going to be first. Apparently he's an incredible fingerstyle player. Like.
Oh yeah, he's good. He's really, really good. And he's been playing. I mean, people who've been around him know this. So he's been playing since he was a kid, and he's really good. He really is. He plays effortlessly. Yeah.
What? And yet he refuses to perform.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah. Man. What can you do? I'm just thinking here. How did you decide on Bigfoot Guitars? That was another question I had. Mervyn has asked this.
I think it was more a fascination with, the Bigfoot, or at least the Eastern counterpart, which was the Yeti.
Yeah.
And so in another lifetime, before I used to build guitars, my first job out of college actually was in Nepal. I used to work with an adventure tourism company. And I used to take groups on treks into the Himalayas. And so a part of that involved going into Tibet and this and that. And it was fun. I mean, my boss then, I still remember, this was maybe 16, 17 years ago. We didn't have any business coming in for a few weeks. So he said, why don't you sit and create a trail? It'll be a cool marketing thing, like make a trail of some kind. And I was heavily into the whole Yeti thing. So I said, should we do like a, look for Yeti kind of road trip for clients? He's like, yeah, why not? So I started reading up, and a few books later, and based on folklore and various things, we actually created like a little thing. We never ended up using it, but because by then things had picked up anyway, and then life went on, and I came back to India shortly after. But that's where that fascination kind of started. And also I have fairly big feet.
Okay, fair enough.
So it was like a bit of a mix of the two. Yeah, I don't know, for some reason I didn't want my name to be the brand. I don't know. I don't have an answer as to why, honestly, but I didn't want it to be a Karan Singh Guitars, because when I started off, I think at some point I wasn't 100% sure whether I'd be doing this as a one-man operation in a few years, whether I'd be doing something else. I didn't know. I just wanted to build guitars. That's all I knew. And one of the things I wanted to do was say, if in 10 years I don't want to build guitars, I don't want things to die out.
Yeah.
I may not personally want to build guitars, and maybe I've got some other idea with what's going on, and I want that to continue. And that's, I think, one of the reasons why I didn't have my name at the forefront. Of course, now a few years later, things have changed, and I'm going to be building guitars as long as I possibly can. But at that point, I think that's probably what the thought process was.
Okay.
Yeah.
What else did I have here? Eric Sung. I own 4 Costals and I also have a Bigfoot. Love them all. That's just showing off, Eric.
Yeah, honestly. I'm going to be moving in with you, Eric. Just give me a few months. Once the lockdown opens up, I'm shifting bag and baggage. I can be your in-house luthier.
How about showing... Oh, here. Looks like you prefer matte finish. Please explain your approach to lacquering.
I wouldn't say I prefer matte finish. Well, if it was my own instrument, yes, I would probably not have a gloss finish on it. I use matte finishes more on the electric instruments that I make, and occasionally on a classical or a steel string if the client wants it, which is really, I think I've built about 72 guitars till now, and maybe 4 or 5 have had matte finishes, and 3 out of those 5 were probably electrics. So it's really very few, but I like the look of a matte finish. I think it just goes along with my aesthetic sensibilities of keeping things simple, and I love the feel of like a really nice, smooth body, but without the shiny stuff happening, almost like a Loudon. His finishes are phenomenal. I love it. I just love caressing a Loudon. It's just one of the nicest things you can put your hands on. Having said that, I don't buy my own guitars. So when the clients come up and ask for a gloss finish, I give them a gloss finish.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. It's a pain, yes. It is one of the most challenging things, if not the most challenging step in building a guitar. For me to build a guitar, put it together, do the voicing, do all of that is relatively very, very simple. Getting a gloss finish on without issues it's a nightmare. And it doesn't get much easier with time. At least for me so far it has. That's my disclaimer. Okay, so I have utmost respect for guys who only do finish work, because if I had that option over here, I would outsource my guitars in a heartbeat if there was someone here who could take on finish work. Unfortunately, that is not the case.
Okay.
I don't have access to guys who do finish at that level where I can give them a guitar and get it back without it being half an inch thick, by the time it comes back to me. So spraying furniture, extremely different from spraying guitars. So as a result of this, and I went through this for several years, and then finally last year in November, I flew down to Canada and spent a month in Canada with Michel Pellerin, who's just outside of Quebec, and he's another great builder and a lovely guy as well. And he teaches a spray finishing course. So he used to be with the finishing department at Godin Guitars.
Oh wow!
And so he sprayed a hell of a lot of guitars in his career, and he's built over 200 of his own guitars. So when he's spraying, he knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
And he's a great teacher as well. So he took me through a session. We went through 2 guitars while I was there. Well, almost 2 guitars. And since I've come back, I've been a lot more confident. But the amount of effort that goes into it is still just the same. It takes as long, if not longer, to finish a guitar as it does for me to build it.
Yeah.
So that's the kind of time frame that you're looking at, and it's just you're always on edge until that guitar gets into its case. And
I can imagine. I can imagine.
Especially when it's shiny, because one little thing here and then you're like, oh damn, again and again. Now redo this, buff that out, spray another coat. It's not fun. It's really not.
The details.
So that's one of the reasons. That's the secret. So that's why I prefer my matte finishes.
Yeah, exactly. So you don't spend hours and hours and hours doing lacquering.
Oh yes. It's nasty stuff. I mean, yeah, it just is.
Ashok asks here, what is your favorite combination of top and back and sides as if you want to make a guitar for yourself?
That's a great question. I'm not sure I've given it much thought. Every couple of years, I think I'm going to make myself a guitar, and then whatever comes into my mind that day, I'll start building it. And by the time it's built, someone comes in and buys it. And I've done this 3 times, and it's true. I mean, it's a fact. I think the one that I really, really enjoyed, I had it all of 2.5 days with me before someone came and bought it. Was it had a German spruce top, and it had purple heart back and sides, and it was a Paolo. It was a small-bodied Paolo with a little transitional arm bevel on it, and I had made it just as an experiment, and I thought, what the hell, I'm just going to keep it. And there was no inlay, no rosette, nothing. I just wanted a plain top because I didn't want anything fancy on it. I said, let me just try and make something that I'd be happy to play downstairs in my room, at the end of the day. And I did, and it came out really nice, and I really liked the way that guitar sounded. Purple Heart is one of those extremely, I think, in my opinion, a highly underrated tone wood for acoustic instruments. A lot of electric builders use it because of the shock value of having a purple strip running through the neck, or some kind of aesthetic adornment. I think if you like purple, let's begin with that. If your eyes can handle purple, it is a fabulous tone wood. It's difficult to work with, like it's tough to sand and things like that, but it makes a great sounding guitar. Really nice. So if I had to make one for myself, I'd probably go back to that combo today. I may change my mind tomorrow, but today that's what I'll go with.
Fascinating. Here's one. How does it feel that celebrity Bob Weir of the Grateful Dead owns one of your guitars?
Well, it's it is humbling, to say the least. It really is. And I don't have one-to-one access to him, but if I could, I would love to just, maybe sit down for like a 30-minute Skype call or something with him and just get feedback and ask him, because if, a guy like him, he's played, I don't know, maybe like a couple of thousand different guitars in his time, over the years. And from the ones that he can remember, at least, and he's a legend. I mean, it's just it's fabulous. I think it happened unexpectedly. It was just one of those things that it just literally happened out of nowhere. It was not a planned sale or anything of the sort. And this was about, I think, 4 years ago now.
Incredible.
And funnily enough, he's got a Paolo guitar. Again, small bodied. Huh. It's got Paduk back and sides. And it has a top made of this ridiculously flamed Indian white cedar. Yeah. It's a hardwood. And it's just nuts. I don't have a photo of it here, but it's on my Instagram from 2017 or 2016, but it's there. It's just it's a crazy looking instrument. And I'm hoping he does get the time to take it out and play it every now and again. I don't know. Like I said,
just let me know what it sounds like. The Brigu says here, I love the Paduk one you made, and each one of them, it sounded like a dream to me, lucky to be around. Yeah. Incredible.
This is from, this is from Brigu, you said?
Brigu, Aurora, yeah.
Okay, so Brigu, so there's a shout out to Brigu. Brigu spends part of his week with me. He handles the repair work that we do. And great kid, man. He came in about 3 years ago, and he'd started off on his own trying to do repairs in Delhi and could repair guitars, but like a lot of other people, didn't really know what he was going for when he was trying to set up a guitar or set things in order. So he came in here, and we had a couple of chats, and we kind of clicked. So I said, why don't you come in and I'll teach you how to do repairs, because we take on repairs. I don't have the time to do them because my time goes into building, and I would much rather build than repair, very simply. But at the same time, in New Delhi, we don't have guys who can do quality repairs. In most of India, for that matter. This is not to brag or anything. It's just the skill set doesn't exist, because most of the folks we have here are YouTube trained, and it's great to a certain point, and then after that it just becomes difficult because you don't understand why an instrument has been put together. It's impossible to fix it.
It's the same in South Africa. South Africa has the same problem. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a similar situation. So anyhow, I mean, so Bigu came in, and fast forward to 2.5 years, 3 years later, now he's completely independent. He's handling all the repair work that comes in. He's a whiz with electronics. He's working on making pedals. He's working on getting his own pickups going. Enterprising young fellow, man. And he makes flight cases as well for guitars.
Wow.
So it's cool. Yeah. This summer, in fact, we've got some really fun stuff happening, because apart from the acoustic work that I do, we are working on launching one bass model and 2 electric models, which should be ready in the next. Yeah. That's the advantage of a lockdown. When you have nothing else to do and you can't access your workshop,
you have to think laterally.
You design.
Exactly.
You get into design work. And it's just stuff that we've been talking about for the last few years and really haven't had the bandwidth to do. And now, because everything is possibly shut, well, my workshop is at home. But what happened was 3 weeks ago, my family and we were supposed to shift to another city. So I had planned all my work accordingly. So I can't start a new batch of guitars because if this lockdown ends halfway through it, then I can't really move when a guitar is, in progress. I'm going to have to spend another 3 months then till I finish my batch. So as a result of that, we've just been sitting around and doing design work, and so we've got all the specs in place. There's some really fun stuff that's going to be coming out. So that's why Brigu's going to be supporting in with that as well. That's why the pedals and the pickups and things like that. It'll be quite a solid addition to what we already do.
Would that be under the same? Would that be under the same brand?
Yes, it would be under the same brand.
Okay. Perfect.
Because the guitars are still going to be handled by me.
Okay.
The pedals and he's doing cables and pedals, all of that will come in as accessories. So it'll be, you'll see it. It'll be announced soon enough in a couple of months.
Exciting.
We'll be ready.
Very exciting. Very exciting.
So
look at that. Jeepers.
That's a prototype.
Wow.
You've got, that's one of the models. That's Monkey Pod. This wood is called Monkey Pod.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh.
This is the almost final one.
And that's absolutely solid, eh? Solid body, yeah. Any thoughts? Yeah. Any thoughts to do it almost like a semi acoustic or a what sort of one with F holes or
like the chambered, like a chambered body? Yeah. No, not at the moment. Not at the moment. But it will happen at some point. Just again, like this itself has taken me 5 years, man. I've been talking about it for 5 years, and now it's finally reached the stage where I'm like, okay, I can actually start having these ready later this year. So the semi-hollow will have to wait its turn now. But yeah, there's some cool things in the pipeline.
That's fascinating. What did Mark say? Mark says, what's the secret to that Purple Heart parlor? That's the sound and feel that I want in my next acoustic. Can it be done with another wood?
Can it be done with another wood? Sure, it could be done with another wood. I think the secret is, if you want my non-romantic opinion about this, I think your builder is what is going to matter.
Yeah.
I think, and matter in massive ways. The tone woods that you use for the back and sides are really not going to impact a lot. No. There you're talking a couple of percent here and there, and it's so subjective that it's just going to come down to who's playing the damn guitar.
Yeah.
It's very, very personal. There's nothing I can't fault a mahogany back and side set on a guitar. I can't fault it. But when I'm playing it, when I'm hearing it on a recording, I honestly can't tell the difference between most guitars. If I'm closing my eyes and listening to guitars, they sound like guitars. Some sound great and some don't. But I don't know what the guitar is made of when I'm listening to it. When you play it, it's a different feel because it's more tactile. You're listening to a lot of things. There's a lot of factors at work. There's the tone of the guitar, of course. There is the playability of the guitar. There's the neck. Everything, every little thing adds up. So I think more than looking at whether I want, it's not like an apples to apples comparison. So leave the Purple Heart out of it would be my advice, and be very clear on who you want building that guitar for you, whoever it may be. And then if I was in anyone else's place, I'd just say, you know what, this is the kind of stuff I like. Now you make me a guitar based on what you think will work for me, and go with it. That's what I would do.
Fascinating.
I'm not, I want this bridge and I want that color and I want this. Nope. I tell people I like it simple. Give me something that's, resonant. I play all of 5 chords and a couple of fingerstyle pieces, simple stuff. Just give me something that I would enjoy playing, something that feels personal, that wants to be held.
Yeah.
Something that I don't want to put down.
Something that doesn't go in a case
and
wait for 40 years before you play it.
Yeah. Yeah.
What have you got behind you? Those two bodies there. What have you got there?
Okay, so those are. Let me bring them closer. Those are the Holy Grailers. They're in, like I said, they're in various stages of the finish process because I ran out of supplies and everything shut down the day after. So it was a bit of a funny one. So this guy is. That's an old growth bear claw spruce top. Are you able to catch the bear claw? Or let me put on another light. I don't know if this helps.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Oh, look at that.
Yeah. So, can you see the bear claw from where you're at?
Yes.
I'm not sure. Yeah? Okay. So that's the top on this guy, and the back and sides are jet black ebony.
Oh, wow.
With a bit of inlay work on it.
Fantastic.
Maybe put off this light again. Not sure. No? Is this easier to see?
It's almost got like it's almost got like a burgundy, the slight burgundian color to it.
So the center strip and the bindings on this are bloodwood, and it looks very similar to Paduk. It's got a similar color.
It's beautiful.
That like a reddish brown or rust, almost like a rust colored thing. I just thought it would make a nice.
That's lovely. Wow.
It would give a little bit of contrast to the ebony because the standard bindings that I use on everything is ebony bindings. So instead of going black on black or dark brown on black, I thought let's get a bit colorful for this one.
Jeez.
And that's the end graft, and the rosette will, it matches that. Can you see the petals on the rosette?
Absolutely. Oh, beautiful.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's
needs to become a little bit more beautiful.
Modified.
Almost there.
Modified Dreadnought.
That's the modified Dreadnought, exactly. And right next to it, I've got my OM, which I will show you as well.
Oh.
Needs a bit of buffing out. So that's German spruce on top, and that's my standard. That's the standard rosette that I do in ebony and blue and yellow stone. That's like a reconstituted stone.
Wow. Oh, it's beautiful.
And this is Ghamar.
Ah. Wow, like jet black, hey?
Yep.
That's incredible.
And that's the back.
Oh, beautiful.
Yeah, can you see the flame on that?
Oh,
so it's very, very tightly figured stuff. And this is my first guitar with it. I've never used it before, and I can't wait to have the strings on it, man.
Oh.
This is going to be a really spectacular sounding guitar.
And that is Gamal, the back and sides.
Yes, yes, this is Ghamar. That's right.
Yeah, it almost looks sort of like slate, not slate. That's incredible.
It's almost like a honey-colored maple.
Yeah.
Like a light honey-colored. It's got this
beautiful
thing going. And I'll show you one of the necks, maybe one or two. I don't know.
So how many guitars would you have taken with you to the Holy Grail?
I just built 2.
Oh, just the 2. Oh, just the 2.
Yeah, I can't fly with more than 2. It's my heart can barely survive taking 2 guitars at a time, and more than that would just be impossible for me.
Oh.
That's my headstock, and that's the one for the ebony guitar.
Oh.
And to match the bindings, we've got the back of the headstock in Paduk.
That's incredible.
And this is another new wood that I've used for the neck. This is a figured wood. It's called Indian bullet wood. Can you see the flame on it?
Yeah.
I'm trying to get the. Yeah.
That's
incredible. That's the neck that's going on. And the other one is, it's a little tried a bit of a burst on this neck.
Wow.
And this is the cover one. So,
Oh,
okay.
incredible. Oh, beautiful. Beautiful.
Thank you very
And
much.
how and who does most of your selling for you abroad?
Who does most of my selling?
Yeah.
Well, honestly, I do a lot of direct
Oh,
business, man. I'm represented in the US. There is Eddie's Guitars, which is in St. Louis,
yeah.
and they handle anything that comes in from the US. But I've got, well, depending on the mood, I've got a guy in China. But
Ah.
to be very honest, I'm not 100% sure how it works because there's a huge cultural gap.
Yeah.
So even with the best of intentions, it's just a lot of things get lost in translation.
I can imagine.
So I've been trying to have conversations with them over the last 3 years, and 1 year it's like, yeah, we are full-time representatives, and 1 year it's like, oh no, we go guitar by guitar, but whatever it is, I mean, there is work happening in China.
For sure.
So that's the other part of it. And the
Oh.
UK and stuff, whatever has been happening has been direct. This is going to London soon. This
Wow.
is German spruce, and prepare yourself.
Wow, that's incredible. I can't believe wood
This is
actually
Rosette
looks like
Tamarind.
that. That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
This is really, really gorgeous stuff, man.
Yes. And was that a direct sale to someone in London?
Oh yeah, I did a show, an exhibition there a couple of years ago, and I met this gentleman at the exhibition,
Wow.
and it was, informally through, I think, Jason. I mean, he was familiar with Jason's work, and then he heard that I'd gone there and studied with him, and then he came down to meet me at the show, and
Incredible.
I had a spalted tamarind guitar on sale over there. So he promptly picked it up, and in 2 minutes he was like, "You are making me one exactly with this wood combo, but with a few changes in the aesthetics." He wanted some personalized bits for it. It was his lifetime build, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of little elements inside the guitar, memories, things, to do with his mom, to do with his
Okay.
dad, various other things. So it's got a whole bunch of little special features
Bits and
for him.
pieces. Incredible, incredible. Mervyn says that looks stunning. Yeah,
Thank you.
look, this has been a fantastic discussion, and I think the more that the industry can look at what luthiers are doing, and looking at all of the experimental stuff, and I think the better. I think it's quite challenging to I suppose it's not a battle, but it's quite a challenge to go up against the Martins and the usual en masse production guitars.
Sure.
And I think if people really want to get a fantastic guitar which has had lots of love and attention, the best way to do it is to go through a luthier. A boutique luthier who spends time and effort doing it. But yeah,
I agree 100%.
totally.
And it's a lifetime thing. I mean, if you find the right builder for you, it would most likely be the last guitar you need. It will definitely not be the last guitar that you will buy because it's addictive. It's like getting a tattoo. You get one and then you need the second and a third. It's one of those.
Yeah.
But it may certainly be the last one that you would need if it's,
sure.
again, properly, if it's been built
Absolutely.
to a standard, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because you can't beat that attention to detail. I mean,
No.
there's just, as a player for all the years before I ever built a guitar, there were just so many things that I took for granted, which I thought were just a given for any instrument. It was just like, oh, high gloss. Oh, of course, every guitar needs to be perfectly, with a perfect mirror finish. Oh, this needs to be perfectly set. Oh, that's just a normal thing. And it's not normal. It's really not normal. It's, the more you build and the more time, you spend doing this, the more time I spend doing this, it's very educational.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of aha moments where I'm like, man, all this stuff I just took for granted, and it is so much work. It's so many little things that have to all come together for it to click. And when you can make that a habit, then then you know what you're doing.
Totally.
Occasionally you get a few of those elements to click, but when you get the entire system from the sound to the playability to the look to the design elements to the finish, everything, when it all comes together, and it's for one guy to do it is not easy.
Yeah.
In a factory, there's a reason they break it down, and they've got
Absolutely.
50 different people working on it. There's a reason that happens.
For sure.
But having said that, it is fun. I mean, I've never been this challenged in my life, and at the same time, I don't think I've enjoyed anything else as much. So
well, I mean, it's definitely fulfilling
combo.
your creative needs and requirements, and also keeping the hands busy.
For sure.
But thank you very, very much for your time. I know you're busy. Well, you've got things to do. Everyone's really, really loved it. As you can see, there've just been questions and questions and questions. So, really, really appreciate it. And I definitely want to have you back on once you've got your electrics and all the pedals and that sort of stuff ready.
Definitely, and I will be in a new workshop by then, and we'll be living by the sea in a state called Goa. It's a little bit further south.
Okay.
And so later this summer we can, it'll be a whole new interview. That
would be excellent. No, that'd be lovely. I would love to do this. And I know you probably know Rory Dowling from Karan Guitars.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I've got him in next week for a chat, which will be great. And same. I've got this year's benefactor. Well, the I think her name is Iona. He actually built a guitar for her.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got like a bursary program that he has together, which is fantastic. But lots of things to come. We're definitely going to have you back on, and thank you very much for your time. It was really fascinating, and really appreciate it.
Thank you, man. I've enjoyed it. Yeah, thank you. I had a great time. Cheers,
and have a lovely day. We'll chat to you very soon.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye. All right, so that was Karan. Fantastic to have him on board, and I just wanted to run past a show that we've got coming up next week. I've got By Benico, a trio out of South Africa in Johannesburg. They are actually moving over to Germany very soon. Very different style of music. They're not sort of massive guitar. Guitarists and that kind of thing, or guitar enthusiasts. But they are on Wednesday, and it would be lovely for if any of you were around to come and have a listen. But I will send out a newsletter. All of you will receive a newsletter with up and coming shows. Of course, Wednesday next week is Rory Dowling from Karan Guitars. So, that's Thursday. Thursday. But yeah, I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much for